Well, Mark Dragon, also known as Marcus Eikenberry in real life, and I have a message here that I got from Jeff, and he says that I'm just a chef that owns a little cafe in McCall, Idaho. I want to open a pinball arcade and in this little resort town. What do you think? I'd appreciate your advice. Well, here's my thoughts. I've owned arcade machines, and I've owned pinball machines, and I looked at opening an arcade in the town of Portland, Oregon. Well, decided against it, because to do it, you have to have a lot of games, and you have to have a lot of low-paid staff, and you have to have cheap electricity, and you have to have people on staff who know how to repair the games. Because if you're having to call for a repairman to fix everything, you're going to eat up all of your profit with that one person. So basically, if you can repair these games on your own, then I'd go for it. But if you can't, maybe stick to the simpler things. Like, well, the arcade games are much like computers. They have a main board in them. They have a CPU. CPU doesn't look anything like the CPUs that we have these days, but it is the same thing inside, and a video card, all of that stuff, except that it plugs in directly to the monitor. And the biggest thing to go out on these is really the controllers and the buttons. They just wear out after so much use. Those are really easy to replace, and really they just unscrew. You open it up, you unscrew the bottom part of it, and you lift it out. You put a new one in, you screw it back in, and you're done. The connections are pretty easy. If you know how to use a solder gun, then you could do all those kind of repairs yourself. And in fact, even if the main board went out, then the main board on it could, in fact, be easily replaced if you can find another one. Now, if you look on eBay, you'll actually see a whole bunch of people selling repaired main boards, and they'll sell them for like $100. And then they say, ship us your old one, we ship you the repaired one. And that's a good little business for them. So as far as pinball machines go, now pinball machines, you want to stay at 1978 or newer. And the reason for that is that's when they went solid state. Before that, they were electromechanical, and the electromechanical stuff is, goodness, basically it's like analog, and digital is digital. So it's back. Do you remember when TVs had tubes in them? Not just the television tube itself, but the actual tubes that glow in them. And those were the same things as a transistor, resistor, and those were the analog version. And then, the diodes, transistors, resistors, all those are the digital version of that, the new solid state version. Anyway, the newer ones have a less chance of having issues that at least are not as complex. And so in the electromechanical stuff, it's getting so old that it's hard to fix it. Now, when I talked about on the arcade machines, like the stand-up arcade machines about replacing buttons and stuff, the electromechanical is like pure buttons inside there. All of it is moving parts, and so motors move them and stuff to turn them on and off. And it's much different than just replacing a single button whenever one button goes out, because those parts are not made anymore either. I've never seen new parts of these manufactured. Also, the older pinball machines, they're it's very hard to find parts. So the newer ones, it's all solid state stuff. If you can't repair that stuff yourself, I have done my own repairs, but I never did it down to the board level. But I replaced solenoids and switches, stuff like that. The mechanical portions of it, I was able to do that. But the rest of it, I had to send to an electronics person. So, and the most common thing is the power regulators. They kind of burn out over time, and so the power starts dropping lower and lower, and then you get unexpected results in your pinball machine. So, the newer pinball machines, which they are still new pinball machines being made, arcade machines There are a few that are still being made, but it's really not the same market that it used to be. So, as far as a pinball machine, Stern in Chicago is making them, and then there's Jersey Jack. And Jersey Jack is the only other pinball manufacturer in the world that I know of, other than Stern. Stern's been around a long, long time. In fact, Gary Stern runs and owns it, and Jersey Jack, it's a guy named Jack, and he's probably in Jersey. Basically, they're making an Alice in Wonderland, and this Alice, is it Alice in Wonderland or Wizard of Oz? Oh darn! Now I don't remember. I'm unsure of myself. But it's going to be an expensive machine. You're going to be looking at around $5,000 for the machine, and that is due to come out later this year. The machine is one of the most complex machines that I've seen, and since it's new, it should work quite well and should get a lot of play out of it. But think about this, that you're going to have to charge $1 a play on a $5,000 machine, and you're going to have to get 5,000 plays out of it just to break even. Actually, that doesn't even break even because you still have to pay for shipping, and then you're going to have to pay for maintenance, and you're going to have to pay for power. And so, you're probably looking at, $6,500 to $7,000 before you break even. So 6,500 games played on it to 7,000. Actually, it'll be more than that because people like me who happen to be good at pinball, once I get the hang of it, I'll pay once and I'll play for like 10 games because I know how to win the extra games, the free games. So basically, those are my thoughts on it. Just being a little cafe, you probably can't afford much, but if you find some of the local pinball enthusiasts, then you may be able to find somebody who's willing to put a machine in your place, and they may, share some of the money with you or whatnot. You could try it and see how it works out. And then I happen to know that Portland is not too far away from you. And that's where I come from. There's a very big pinball community in Portland. And so very active. You can look on Craigslist. You can see pinball machines posted almost every day. And I used to buy and sell and trade pinball machines there all the time. Really loved it. And so I think that might be a good resource for you. Now, if you'd like suggestions on what pinball machines to do, the number one, there's the Internet Pinball Database, and it shows the most liked games as one of the lists on there. Number one is Twilight Zone. Twilight Zone is the most complex pinball machine ever made. The new one from Jersey Jack might be more complex, but Twilight Zone is the number one. Now it also has the most moving parts, and so it has the most likelihood of breaking down, or more likelihood. Number two is Star Trek: The Next Generation. Now, both of these are based on TV titles, and Star Trek: The Next Generation doesn't have as many moving parts, but what it does have is it has a lot more interactivity, and it has Easter eggs in it all over the place. In fact, you can play poker against Riker and stuff like that, if you hit the right combination of things, and that's not something that's in any of the instructions anywhere. And there's a lot of other stuff. There's a lot of little tricks to it. And when Data, tells you that you stink at playing pinball or whatnot, you can hit the flippers to cancel them out, and then Picard will put him in his place and stuff like that. So, those are the top two from the last time I looked at the list. I owned both of those. I actually got kind of bored with Twilight Zone because I didn't like the TV series as much as I liked Star Trek Next Generation. And then I ended up selling them when I moved down here. So anyway, I hope that put you on to a good start. And there is also one more resource. If you're going to be buying multiple pinball machines, get the Pinball Price Guide for this year. And it will tell you, it's a book that you can just Google. It will tell you what you should be paying for those pinball machines, and to know whether or not it's a good deal. Because if you look on eBay, you'll find that there's a whole bunch of people out there that sell on eBay for twice the value of the pinball machines. Now, they're all reworked, they're all in perfect shape, and they're all restored, and they'll ship them to your door, but it is twice as much, and you don't need to pay that much. Now, for you entrepreneurs out there, maybe you could be buying some pinball machines, and then you post them on eBay for twice as much, and people come by and buy them all the time. It's really kind of interesting because the eBay market is much different. The eBay market tends to not be, for people who are buying these high-priced ones, is people who just want to have a pinball machine. They remember having one. They're not an enthusiast about it, but they'd like to have one in their home. And so it is another one of those entrepreneurial niches that you can take advantage of. And if you know how to clean up a machine and do a little restoration, to where you can spend like 10 hours on a machine, you buy a machine for $2,000, spend 10 hours on it, sell it for $4,000. Sounds like good money to me. I'm Marky Dragon. Take care.